Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. Thank you, sponsors: Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins and Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, Compsy.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. Today's episode hopefully be more efficient. The episodes last week with the back and forth, I'm glad we did that. In fact, I'll be back on with those guys on their channels tomorrow, and they'll have a chance to respond to this. But this gives me a chance to more efficiently get out some of these things I haven't said because we were whizzing back and forth. We're still disagreeing, but I still don't think all the facts and perspectives are yet on the table. I want to hear from them, but they're going to hear from me in the next 15 minutes. Many people are accusing me of underthinking about the issue. I've always been accused of being an overthinker, which I am. So I'm going to try to peel back the star onion a little bit more. But remember, I'm not the schmoozer. I'm not a cajoler. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm an analytical. I'm a consultant. I'm a teacher. Doing the right thing is more important to me than making everybody happy. Now, usually those are the same thing. But based on my latest thinking about this, because I just keep going deeper, I'm realizing that the hobby has typically valued the brand, like Topps, more than full licensing or the licensing status, and more than timing, even the year. You can note the recent Topps Chrome basketball and the Topps composite football. They're not fully licensed, and I'm not sure the market cares as much. In fact, composite really looks licensed. The leagues are giving them almost a quasi-license. Now, Panini baseball cards have the RC logo on the card, and they're not fully licensed. This would be another reason why 52 Topps, being a much stronger brand and company than Bowman, why the 52 Topps of Manlin Mays are more expensive than the admitted, acknowledged rookies in 1951 Bowman. So again, branding perhaps more important than licensing status or timing. Okay, I've got a provocative analogy for you. 500 years ago, someone, let's call him Person A, challenged long accepted classifications, definitions, and traditional structure and order. That someone had 95 specific points. However, the established decision maker, let's call that person B, would not enter into a substantive discussion or debate about the merits of those points. History tells us much about this schism with a capital S. I don't want a schism, but there may never be full agreement, even when all the facts are out on the table, about the Star Company. Of course, Person A is Martin Luther, and Person B was the Pope. The Pope had the advantage, or perhaps disadvantage, of being declared infallible by the traditions of the Church. In this admittedly sacrilegious analogy, Pope Dr. Jim Beckett declares immediately, right from the start, that he is not infallible. And he further, as I did last week, welcomes hearing the concerns of the petitioners and desires a full discussion of their issues. Now, what if 500 years ago they had talked like we talked last week? That's a long time ago. But that's what I'm trying to do. I want to have a good discussion about this, but I'm still not hearing a lot of new facts. I think I'm throwing out some things, but I'm not hearing from my friends. They're just giving new definitions to things that had been resolved a long time ago, but I still want to hear their arguments. In short, I believe the Star Company aficionados, I'm calling them, believe that the 101 Jordan will not reach its full potential unless it is reclassified as the RC, as the true rookie card. I disagree. In fact, I think I can make a case that the debate has actually helped the card and its visibility and its prominence. Okay, let's talk about Fleer. Fleer was a major card company. Didn't start out that great in 1981, but by 1984, that's when they turned the corner. Their baseball, again, it was mainly baseball in those days. So 84, their baseball set and their baseball extended update set, both of those were very highly regarded. 85 was another good year, and that's judged by their distribution. Their distribution would have been way better than it was in 80 because of the hobby shop and retail penetration. The LCSs were asking for Fleer. The Fleer rookie was regarded, and the 84 update Clemens was a great card. So I can see how they would have thought, hey, we're ready for basketball in 86, 87. They may have been thinking we're ready in 85, 86. But for a major card company, you need a year to plan and to get the license and all that. I'm just saying, no reasonable person would think that Star's license would be extended. I don't know that the leagues went out to ask Fleer and Topps to submit proposals, but I don't think anybody would think, hey, Star's going to be back. They had not grown the category, which was a big deal to the licensors. So 86, 87 Fleer, the marketing message was basketball cards are back. Topps had it. I don't think they even discussed Star. Is it we're going to pick up where Star left off. No, I think Star was a footnote. They say basketball cards for real are back. And Fleer jumped in heavy. And in fact, now we can see that they produced for the market at the time. But if Fleer had started basketball in 85, 86, then we might not be having this discussion because Michael Jordan would have been in that set. In fact, that would have been his on-time rookie card, as was the custom back in those decades. RCs didn't come out in their rookie year. That's a relatively new phenomenon. The licensing said they had to appear in a game, so they really came out the next year after their debut, after they hit the court. It's the beginning of their second year, but they've actually appeared in the league. And that's what I mean about Star being untimely. A regular license, you had to be in the league, and Star didn't do that. And apparently the terms of their license, either the leagues looked the other way, but Fleer couldn't do that. I believe the terms of the license prohibited Fleer from putting players in there that had not appeared in the league yet. That's so you've got Mullen and Karl Malone and Joe Dumars. They are first card rookies, RCs in 86, 87. They played in 85, 86. So my point is that Jordan was 1 year later than that. He was entering his third year, but if Fleer had been there in 85, 86, that would have been the first time. In a standard license, there would not have been an 84, 85 Fleer. That was, I believe, prohibited by the license. Okay, and in football, you do the same thing. Look at Walter Payton, look at Joe Montana. Their rookie cards came in the beginning of their second year. And the only exception for that were the XRCs I classified later in the 80s when some of the box sets came out at the end of the year. Okay, the other thing I've heard, I believe it's assumed that Topps turned down the license that Star got in 83 or 84. I doubt that. That's just not how it works. I believe Topps and Fleer would have taken Star's deal for $10,000 to just print up some cards. The only way you lose money is having a bad sell-through, and the reason you have a bad sell-through sometimes is because the license for the major card companies require minimums and guarantees that stretch your projections. So did Topps lose money? Yes, I believe they lost money, but would they have made money if the licensing fee had been $10,000? I think they'd still be doing it. Okay, so don't say Topps turned its back on the category. That's not how licensing works. They wouldn't go back to Topps and say, hey, our best offer is $10,000. Will you do it? I believe, of course, they would have taken it. They were in the business of printing cards. And if they didn't have minimum guarantees, they absolutely could have printed a lot more than Star did and made money. When I see my old teammates at the National and at shows, several of them work for the card companies, and they understand this. And so we've talked about it. They all want to see lower royalties, lower guarantees, lower minimums, because they know they have to put out some weaker products to get them up to meet the lump sum. So the lump sum is a bigger deal than the percentage. You can factor in the percentage, but when you're having to stretch to produce more than you really want to, that's a problem. I don't believe Topps was afforded an opportunity to match that. And if they were, or Fleer, I believe they would have done it. So 11, I think at best, was a pay-as-you-go. And that's not how Topps or any of the other majors were treated in any sense of my experience of talking to card companies and people that work there. Dave mentioned, who knew? He said, perhaps Star would have been the next Topps. How could you know? You couldn't know in 83 when they gave them this quote-unquote license how they would turn out. Topps, and he compares back to Topps in 1952. Topps started in 38, actually started before 38, but it really started in Brooklyn in 38. It was mainly a candy company. My big point here is that Topps' success, they defeated Bowman based on their established candy distribution network. They were in no way a startup in 52. They hit the ground running because they had relationships and sales agents calling on these places where they could easily get their cards in. And within a few years, they were dominating Bowman. But so they definitely weren't a startup. Now, I was a startup almost exactly that same time. My first 2 years of the company, 84 and 85, I didn't take a salary. But the money that I could have taken for a salary, I reinvested in the business, in the products, the employees, and again, expanding distribution. I was already well known in the industry. The contrast to Robert Levin, I don't think he's a bad guy, but he was the opposite of me in that regard. I regularly hit every month the major card shows, the nationals, every national. Levin and Star did not. My distribution was soundly built on a proven seller, the magazines where dealers could double their money. And Levin had a business model with too thin a spread between wholesale and retail. Thus, rationally not appealing to the LCSs and other show dealers. If you're only going to make 25% margin or 50% margin, that's not enough for holding some cards from a company that nobody had heard of at that point. My star aficionado friends all have said this. They say you can't sell when there's no demand. That's basically an insult to every marketing professional out there. The whole science of marketing is creating demand frequently for products we don't need or we don't know we need or perhaps even want. Marketing drives the demand. And in no way did Star have marketing that drove the demand. And so the demand just sat there. Look at Lud Denny. He wasn't an accounting genius, but he was a marketing genius. Gosh, he got the cards out there everywhere. And look at Apple. Apple's creating products that people don't think they need or even know about. And next thing, they're out there. Why? Because they have marketing, distribution, and visibility. And lastly, on the marketing, is that what a blunder. They're acknowledging that baseball was king, was the only game in town was baseball. So why did Star release their products when baseball was coming out? Directly competing against baseball was a huge marketing blunder. Okay, now talking about the license, I haven't heard from anybody that has any experience with getting a license. How about me? I learned from our attempt to get a license. So this is my own experience. I believe there's roughly 3 types of licenses out there. There's apparel, the categories that are huge. There's cards, which is huge, especially for the Players Association. And then novelties, photos, stickers, pet rocks, anything, a curiosity. And it's in that order for the leagues. Cards have come up, certainly for the players, cards is a big deal, but we were denied a photo license in spite of our corporate readiness, our design excellence, and our maximal distribution within the hobby. Why? I think it's because they already had a licensee in the category. But in our research, we found we needed to be prepared to write a big check for their projections, their aggressive projections of our annual sales. And we would have lost money if we did not reach their projections. If we reached their projections, yes, we would make money. If we fell short, they're still going to get their minimum guarantee, and that would have put us underwater. That's what a standard license does. Now, for pet rocks and other novelties like that, sometimes they gave the small entrepreneur a break in those days with a non-standard or provisional or trial or junior or conditional license, and they hoped things would work out, knowing that most of them will fail. And they just looked at what the applicant would be able to pay. And Star 11 walks up and says, I got $10,000 for a license that nobody wants. And they say, fine, we'll take your $10,000. So the fact that Star Company clearly did not have onerous guarantees or any kind of marketing plan oversight like every other card licensee needs and gets, that means to me that they really didn't have a standard full major card company license. If we were to compare their license with Topps or Fleer in basketball or baseball or any other sport, they had a short term. They had really no right to extend the license. All the balls were in the NBA's court. But on the other hand, the NBA's care and oversight in those days was proportional to the potential size of their pessimistic estimation of the card category. Now, NBA licensing at the time, from my experience, was the least knowledgeable of the sports about the hobby. Doesn't mean they weren't good at licensing, but I don't even think they were big lifetime basketball fans, and they certainly did not have collector background in their decision tree of making or recommending decisions. Now, later on, I think all the sports kind of eliminated these smaller licenses and raised the bar just because it was a headache. But we applied. We thought we had a good chance, and I'm not steamed about it because we had plenty of things to do. But we were vetoed because we had a good plan. It wasn't because we had a bad plan. We had a good plan. And it would have stepped on the toes of the incumbent licensee, who was actually a friend of mine. So again, no hard feelings. Dave also mentioned, Dave's a sharp guy. I really complimented his boldness, but he said $10,000, he thought it was a lot of money in 1984. That's not true, Dave. I was there. And in the 80s, when Score and Upper Deck and Pacific and ProSet all showed up trying to get major company licenses, they were all looking at 7-figure advances. So $10,000 was peanuts in 1983 or 84. They were regularly 7-figure guarantees. So my rhetorical question is, was Star Company licensed? Or did they just have a simple agreement allowing them to use the likenesses and marks for their cards for a period of time? A small royalty fee. They probably paid a percentage, but with no guarantee, they could get away with just printing to what they perceived as the demand. Star Company, I'm sure, is the weakest company to ever get a card license by far. And it's order of magnitude. One order of magnitude is 10 times. Two orders of magnitude is 100 times. I believe Topps was 100 times bigger than Star. I believe Fleer was 100 times bigger than Star. Okay, another one. It came up in the discussion that Robert Levin held back 150 bags. His desire was to hold back 150 bags of every set for a rainy day, he said. Or Steve said, and I trust Steve, and I'm not debating that. It's just that if Richard McWilliam held back, or Cy Berger held back, Griffey's or Mantles for their private personal stock, for whatever reason, I think the hobby would be horrified. Levin admitted it, but 150 Jordan bags now, that'd be like $1 million each perhaps. $150 million, that's crazy. And I think there was perception that was going on, and that absolutely destroys consumer and dealer confidence. Okay, finally, 10 reasons why the Jordan 101 I believe is an XRC and not an RC. Again, that's the way it's always been. But number one, not pack pulled according to the long-standing definition at the time. Now, you can try to redefine what pack pulled mean, but I'm saying what it meant at the time it wasn't. Number two, the start was not nationally available. What it meant at that time is nationally hobby available. And that was because they had a non-standard distribution plan. Plus, on the availability, they had an unavailable owner. I was at every national, all these shows, Levin, Star Company, they weren't available, they weren't visible. And that made it difficult for people to have confidence in the product. Contrasting with my situation, they had confidence, I was out there and responsive. Number three, the price to quality of the cards. They were unprecedentedly expensive. For not better quality, they were much higher. And their business model was just not accepted by the hobby. Number four, the fact that the distribution was deterministic and not random. People would always talk in those days about being lucky to get an RC because they'd buy a pack, they'd open up, and they'd feel lucky if they got it because it wasn't. But with Star, there was no luck involved. The luck for Star Company was being lucky enough to stumble on or otherwise notice ads for an obscure new small card company. That's the luck. And then you'd pay a few bucks to get it. That's a totally different kind of luck. That's not a randomly being surprised in a pack. Number five was lower production numbers, so low, precedentedly low. And even then, it did not sell through, which people do not like cards from defunct companies, and companies do not stay in business not selling out their product. And that was known at the time. Number six, I mentioned extended sets are either released early or late, and not the standard license. Jordan would have been coming out in packs if Fleer had been the licensee, or if Star had done it with a traditional license in 85, 86, in early fall when basketball came out. And that would be the beginning of his second season, and that would have been completely normal, and it would have been unusual to not be that. And again, that's why when it came out during his rookie year, that was not allowable for major licensees. Number seven, the Star Company, obviously I've said, definitely not a major card manufacturer. Again, mysterious, involved in several controversies, not just one. Steve can debunk one of them, but it still happened. The shop at home stuff, there just was always a controversy there. Number eight, I think it's a bigger deal than they're admitting, is that the Star Company to be blacklisted from grading by PSA for a long time meant that it was too hot to handle, that there were questions about the company and questions about the cards. Number nine, the fear of reprintability or finding more sets. I've heard people talk about there may be more sets coming out. This is what we see. But now we hear that Levin, those were rumors that were true. Levin has admitted he held back. And the third-party printers, with the outsourcing, who's to say they don't still have some printing plates? Maybe they're out of business, but they could have sold them. Then number 10, and this is the first time I've really pushed back, I'm realizing I don't think Star was fully licensed with a quote-unquote standard major card license with normal guarantees. And that would make it an XRC and not an RC. So thank you for your patience, and I look forward to my session with my friends tomorrow, where they'll push back undoubtedly, and we'll see if we can move the ball closer to the goal line one way or the other. So thanks, everybody, and talk to you soon.